testing what persuades somebody to change their mind is very hard, and it's art, not science.
One thing that's creeping back into the Harris ads at the end here was Project 2025, because it is very effective and awareness of it is like shockingly high. Welcome to Political Experts React, where we break down political ads and media, explain what the people behind them are trying to accomplish, and decide whether or not they did a good job. I'm Dan Pfeiffer, former communications director for Barack Obama, and joining me today is the host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller. This episode of Political Experts React is brought to you by ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol, your first drink for a better tomorrow. Tim Miller, welcome back to Political Experts React.
I'm so excited to be here, Dan. Let's do it. Let's react.
Give us a quick sense of how you're feeling.
Well, I vomited this morning, so it's unclear to me whether I'm getting sick or whether that was just unresolved anxiety that my body was doing, or whether they put something in my coffee. So that's about how I'm doing. I think it's tight.
So you're doing great.
I'm okay.
Okay. All right, good. I am feeling weirdly zen because I feel like no one knows anything, and I've decided all the polls can't really tell us anything, and so it is what it is.
Serenity prayer.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what I'm hoping for, at least.
Okay, great.
All right, let's start with an ad from the Harris campaign and see what you think.
Do you think he's a fascist?
He certainly falls into the general definition of a fascist, using the military to go after American citizens. He commented more than once that Hitler did some good things too.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
All right, I picked this ad because it's first the ad the Harris campaign launched after John Kelly's comments in the New York Times and elsewhere. But it also, I think, is emblematic of a larger debate within the Democratic Party about what the closing message should be. So what do you think of this ad? And is this sort of this Trump's a fascist, unchecked, powered, unhinged, a good way to close the campaign?
I like the theme as a good way to close the campaign, and we can hash out that disagreement because I'm strongly opposed to the people that are saying that they shouldn't talk about this. That particular ad, I mean, I think that there's a fair critique of this, that it's like, it's better to talk in just plain language about what that means. You know, Trump's chief of staff, John Kelly, says he wanted to go after protesters, peaceful protesters. He's going to use the military to go after protesters. They want to use his own words, and John Kelly's interview was kind of circuitous and stuff, and so it made it a little tough to get a good soundbite out of it. But I think that this idea that Trump is going to be unchecked, that Trump wanted to do tangible thing X, Y, and Z last time, he was prevented from that by, the relatively more responsible people around him. Those people are gone now. Those people are sending you a warning that unchecked Donald Trump is dangerous. I think that is a good way to close when you think about the types of people they're trying to get to.
And those types of people are?
Two groups. One, my people.
Yeah,
one is my people, the Nikki Haley Republicans, right? And, some of them are deciding between Trump and Haley. Some of them are deciding between Trump and no vote. Some of them are deciding between no vote and Haley, right? They come in all those flavors. And you want them in the last week being reminded why they hate Trump. That's what you want as much as possible. You want the intensity and the stakes to feel as high as possible for them, to nudge them to do something that they're not that comfortable doing, which is not vote for the Republican, that they haven't traditionally done. The other group is people that haven't been that engaged, don't know who John Kelly is, right? You could argue to me that those people are better engaged by Bad Bunny Instagram posts or by abortion, or I'm kind of neutral on that, but you have to find a way to get to people that are just checking in. To me, I don't know. If you go on a college campus and you say, hey, Donald Trump's chief of staff said that Trump wanted to send the military after peaceful protesters. If you're planning on protesting the next 4 years, Donald Trump might send the military after you, and that's his own chief of staff that said that. That could be compelling and motivating some people, right? I don't know. Is that crazy to think that could motivate some people that were kind of bleh about this campaign?
No, I don't think it's crazy at all. And my take on this is, I think people saying she shouldn't talk about it, that's insane. You have to talk about it. The chief of staff to the former president says he's a fascist on the record, on audio. It's an insane thing. It's like Jon Favreau and I joked about this the other day. It's like, what are you going to say? They ask you that, and you come back and say, well, here's my plan to cut prices. Or, what's really fascist? Price gouging, right? Just you have to talk about what's in the news. Because if you don't talk about what's in the news, then Trump's going to decide what's in the news. And sometimes, as we know from his Madison Square Garden rally, that can be disastrous for him, and sometimes it can be bad for you. So you have to talk about it. But I think people probably understand fascist is not great, but they don't really know what it means. And so you have to be specific about how you get to people. And the Harris campaign has clearly decided that their best, most gettable group of voters are these Haley voters, Republican-leaning independents, high-propensity voters who are deciding primarily between voting for Trump, voting for Harris, or leaving the top of the ticket blank. They are going to vote because they're going to vote for Dave McCormick or, whoever else. They're going to vote for their local congressperson. And so unlike some of these other people that Trump's trying to get, you only have to get them to do one thing. They just have to vote for you. You don't have to convince them to vote and to vote for you. The challenge is you also have a bunch of voters who don't like all those things about Trump, but they need her to get to some sort of threshold of economic credibility. And some of the ads that try to split the difference are pretty inelegant, right?
Yeah.
It's like Project 2025 wants unchecked power to cut taxes for the wealthy.
Yeah, right.
And then that ad tests very well. I've seen the testing on it, but it's like from a narrative perspective, I think it's kind of tough.
Can I do a rant about ad testing?
Yeah.
Can we just do I feel like I'm going to be Charles Barkley on TNT right now talking about these analytics nerds. They don't do anything. I care about the eye test. But ad testing isn't like basketball. There's some things you can test very well, right? Like which thumbnail is going to get better people to click on your YouTube. Testing what persuades somebody to change their mind is very hard, and it's art, not science. And when these guys go out there and they say, well, look, we tested this ad, and it got 46.8% thumbs ups, and this ad got 45.4% thumbs up. I'm just like, that's not, there's things you can learn, right? Like you can learn, and I've seen all these tests. You learn, like the word Nazi kind of turns people off, and that's something that you can learn, right? One of the challenges of such a short runway was she had a short runway to make the case that you could trust her on economic issues. I think that it's much easier in the last 7 days to make the case that Donald Trump is an unhinged maniac and it's not worth the risk than it is to make the case that you can trust Kamala Harris with the economy. I think that's a tough case to make for people who aren't already bought in on it.
Yeah, I largely agree with you on the ad testing when it's about one specific ad, because if you just put the words in cut tax for the middle class or stop companies from shipping jobs overseas, the ad tests very well, but that doesn't mean that the entirety of the ad is useful. Like where it is useful is if you test all the ads, you can take some real lessons, like abortion ads that use people's personal stories work better than the ones that don't. Contrast to ads work better than straight negatives. The candidate to camera works better than via. Like you can learn those things and then broadly economic ones, but just to be able to say this ad tests great, I think is always hard. It's a piece of information, but I'm not sure it's as decisive as sometimes people take it to be. And you can miss the forest for the trees that way, I think is the challenge.
Big time. And I'm just saying, with love to all of our ad testing partners, one group puts out a memo and this is the best testing ad, and then another group tests the same language and it tests 18th. So I'm just saying there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors happening.
All right, people. If you're someone who enjoys this show, I'm certain you will also like my Message Box newsletter. Every post provides analysis and insight for political junkies and strategic guidance for people on the front lines of politics, whether they're working on a campaign, running for office, or just fighting with their MAGA uncle on Facebook. Trust me, there's going to be plenty to discuss following this election, so please do me this favor and subscribe to the Message Box. The link is in the description below. Thanks, everyone. Let's switch to the ad that anyone who watches football in America has seen 1 million times over the last 3 months or so.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
I think if Donald Trump wins this election, there will be an unlimited amount of takes about the role this ad and anti-trans attacks in general have played. What do you think?
Yeah, great work, Charlemagne. Congrats on that. The first time I saw that ad, actually, I was at my friend's house before the LSU game at tailgate, which mostly people that are not political. And the response in the room, my little anecdotal focus group, was yikes. That is intense, But that's what they want. They're trying to spook people and get the little lizard thing in their brain to be like, man, Kamala might be pretty far out there. She might be for some stuff that's very extreme for me, or very weird, or very unusual. It was probably effective at getting people to think like that. I understand why the campaign did the ad. It's obviously gross and despicable. I'm not particularly convinced that the amount of intensity they put behind it pays off. I think that there has to be some diminishing returns there. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the ad is, I think, devastatingly effective in a couple ways. One, his target is to convince young black men to vote for Trump, and if not vote for Trump, to not vote for Kamala Harris. And so to get Charlemagne, someone that is very well known in the community, saying that in the way that normal people would talk about it, right? People who confronted with this information for the first time, like you could see it's a relatable conversation for some group of Americans to have. It goes at what is the core argument in every campaign is like, who's for us and who's for someone else. Now, I think the they-them thing goes over most people's heads. They don't really get that, but it does.
The first time I saw that, I was like, well, my dad is watching that. He's like, what are they talking about? Like, they don't even get the they-them thing.
The other reason why it matters is Kamala Harris is an unknown figure. She is a black woman from Oakland and San Francisco. Their goal is to portray her as out of touch with American mainstream values. This is one way to introduce new information to people that would potentially make them think, oh, maybe she is not who I thought she might be. And you're right, the ad is absolutely despicable and gross. And I think there's a danger that people can overread that this is about trans issues generally, when I think it's not about that. It's really about their goal is to be bigoted toward trans people. Like that is the cherry on the sundae for them. But it's also about taxpayer dollars going to someone who is not me, right? And to prisoners, right? Is as much a part of that as well. I'm curious about their decision to run it so much. I think there's probably a competing theory about how many times you can get an ad in front of people in this media environment. In the old days, you run it for 2 weeks, you get to your gross rating points and you take it off and you just cycle on something else because you believe someone will have seen it enough times. Now, you're only really getting some people during football, right? It's the only time you're getting them. So maybe you're running your ads longer.
Just one thing, just to follow up with your point on Charlemagne, which is the best part. I'm loath to always compliment them. That is the best part of the ad, though, because of how he talks naturally. And when you see some of these other ads out there, it's the biggest challenge of the story ad. Like, I think the Democrats have done it very well in the abortion ads that they've run, where the women are talking and they sound so genuine and so authentic about this horrible experience they went through. But then there are the other kind of ads that are like, hey, I'm a regular guy and I like football, so I'm voting for Kamala Harris. And like those ads almost always, you can't even put your finger on why. You're just like, like the guy might be telling what he really thinks, but it seems like a script, right? And the fact that they pulled the thing from a natural Charlemagne conversation on the podcast does, I think, make it land a little better because it feels authentic. I kind of feel like that's the future of ads, like how ads should look like in the future for political campaigns.
I mean, it is mind-boggling these campaigns spend billions of dollars to reach what adds up to about 1.2 million people in the 7 swing states. And most of the ads will only be seen by people who made up their mind a long time ago or will never vote. And were a total waste of time and money. And so one thing that I hope, at least in the Democratic Party, is we revisit the allocation of resources and how we do these ads. I do sort of think the future is a little more like the ones that the voters against Trump, Republican voters against Trump, and others have done, where it's just like very raw footage of people to camera talking, as opposed to these slickly produced things, all with the voiceover of the guy who starred in The Wire, which is what all the Democratic ads are using.
Right.
Which is very...
Also, I want to change up the voiceover so I don't, because like now you just automatically check out that voice. Like that voice is on, it's like, oh wait, that's an ad.
All right, people, I'm here to tell you about a game-changing product I use before a night out with drinks. It's called ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. All right, folks, we're on the final countdown to Election Day, which means caffeine in the morning, doom scrolling all day, and let's be honest, a much-needed drink at night, but only after I've taken ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. I will admit this, I was a skeptic at first, but this stuff genuinely works. I take it every time I drink. I swear by it. I hand it out to my friends. It definitely works, and it's my secret weapon for waking up feeling my best. Go to ZBiotics.com/experts to get 15% off your first order when you use experts at checkout. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Thanks to ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol for sponsoring this video and for our good times. All right, let's look at our last ad, which is also from the Harris campaign.
54 years they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it.
He did it. It was pretty devastating.
He is bragging about the rights that he stole from American women, and Trump is promising to do more. in Project 2025.
They are restricting birth control,
tracking pregnant women, enforcing a nationwide abortion ban. The government should get out of my business.
Stay out of my business.
That's not the government's business.
In America, women make their own decisions.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
What do you think about this, Ed?
I think it's good. The proof's in the pudding on this issue from every election, really, since Dobbs. I like the fact that they're bringing in new information, you know, about what is actually in Project 2025, the birth control, the monitoring of women. I think that's good, and I think that convincing people that this is a threat, like a real and legitimate threat, I think is another important job for the last week. Despite the fact that I am for the fascism argument, it might be more effective at like nudging people over, just getting them to really grapple with the fact that it could become law. Because I think if you just look at the evidence of the midterms, the Democrats did the best in places where voters, I think, had real palpable concerns about the changes in abortion laws, and did the worst in places like New York and California, right, where people were like, well, nothing's actually going to change in the law here. And so I think that is important, especially as you look at those blue wall states. They have Democratic governors. Like, the national element of this is critical. You have to convince women and men in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin that, like, this could come to you. This could be a national threat.
That's exactly right. The cadence here was people had a right to access abortion. Dobbs happened. Then in the 7 battleground states, in most of the 7 battleground states, Democrats mobilized, elected Democratic governors and legislators, and then passed laws to protect the right to abortion. And so now, for a lot of voters who maybe are less dialed in, they're going to think it's safe. And so the only way to make people vote on this issue primarily is to make people understand that if Donald Trump is president, Michigan could be Texas, right? Pennsylvania could be Texas, you know, or wherever else. And that was the original goal of her going to Texas, of Kamala Harris going to Texas last week. That got a little swamped by the Beyonce endorsement and performance. This was the message that Michelle Obama delivered in her event on Saturday with the vice president. One thing that's creeping back into the Harris ads at the end here was Project 2025. It was a huge topic of discussion, kind of faded in recent weeks, and they're kind of bringing it back because it is very effective, and awareness of it is like shockingly high. And so using that as your proof point that he will do these things, I think is pretty effective.
It was the one gift to Harris from the Biden campaign, which was during those desperate 3 weeks after the debate where they're like, we need to talk about something besides the debate. Like, they really drove the Project 25 message in a way that I think increased its salience in a way that it wasn't prior.
We will leave it there. Tim, good luck for this last week here, and keep your fingers crossed.
You too, brother. Good to see you.
Thanks for watching these ads and videos with us. If you have anything you'd like us to break down, let us know in the comments. See you all next time.